Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast, where we are experts on absolutely nothing. And we have a special show once again, but this time it's even extra special because, surprise, surprise, we have a new co-host. So, of course, I'm Landon Oliver, your host, here with my co-host, Andrew Scott, and our new co-host joining us now, Jared Holly. What's going on, man?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us, man. It's good to have you.
Yeah, man. He's going to be a permanent co-host, and with him, he has a wealth of DFS knowledge. So especially now that football is getting back into swing, we're going to be doing some more daily shows, some more fantasy shows, and Jared is basically a professional daily fantasy player.
Oh, professional.
Look, man, you got the star by your name on the FanDuel app, so
that's something.
I'm doing okay.
Yeah, you're doing all
you're
right.
at the minimum. You are now a certified amateur expert at DFS, at least by association. So
I'll definitely take that.
That's right. So we'll definitely be excited to feature him on all the upcoming podcasts, as well as our special DFS/fantasy segments that we will be doing once a week, starting with week 1 of the season. But for now, we're going to continue on with our divisional previews. We are now only 2 away from the start of the season. We have this week and next week. And if you've been following along with us, you know that this week is the AFC North Preview, one of the most stacked divisions and one of the most fun divisions to talk about in football. Finally, because for so long, it's just been 2 teams that have ran it. And now it seems like we're actually getting a little bit of competition in here. So, we will get started on that with the divisional winner from last season, which I believe to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously we know last year Pittsburgh won the 11 games straight. They were 11-0, then just completely fell apart unless they were playing the Colts because we can't beat the Steelers. But beside that, we don't talk about that. The Browns ended up making the playoffs last year as well. The Ravens ended up making the playoffs last year as well. So you had 3 teams from this division making the playoffs, even though the Steelers did win the division, and they got absolutely annihilated by the Browns in the wild card game. So it's a very interesting division, but let's just go right from the top, from the Steelers. What's your opinion, Drew, of how the Steelers are looking this year?
So I do, obviously there's still a lot to love on the defensive side of the ball, but the concerning thing for me was the lack of upgrade at the offensive line position, before they did bring in Trey Turner, but the fact that the offensive line was aging and pieces moved on and they chose to address the running back position in the first round instead of addressing the offensive line, which, if you've listened to any of these podcasts, you know how not a fan we are of that. So I love Najee Harris. I think he's going to be a great player, but that is concerning for me. They do still have one of, if not the most talented trio of receivers in the league. I like Pat Freiermuth a lot. So in terms of what they have pass catchers, I think they're in really good shape there, which is a good thing, because I think Big Ben's gonna have to throw the ball a shit ton, but because I don't know how much they're really gonna be able to get done on the ground. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the short of it. Is obviously still love the defense. It will be interesting. We've talked a lot about how poorly Bud Dupree played whenever TJ Watt wasn't out there, but there was also some interesting next gen stats for the back half of last year whenever Bud Dupree was out, that TJ Watt's numbers also declined. So it'll be kind of interesting to see with him out the door. I still think Watt's going to be fine, but I just thought that was an interesting nugget that I read whenever I was getting ready for this. But outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick, I don't know what to make of the secondary, but up front they're really strong on defense. But I think I do have the Steelers going from first down to third place in the division this year personally. So definitely some regression going on for me.
Yeah, very good points. And Jared, we'll move on to you now. Your views on the Pittsburgh Steelers this coming up season.
Definitely the offensive line is a concern. I don't necessarily hate Najee Harris with them taking him in the first round. I think you have an aging quarterback who definitely declined at the end of last year. He fell off. Like the numbers he put up until like the last 4 weeks of the season were great numbers. And they had no running game. They ran the ball hardly none. Them and Buffalo were very similar on not running the football. I think with Najee Harris, it's a terrible offensive line. It's not good, but I do feel like he could be a pass catching back. And if Big Ben can at least avoid pressure, which he's been able to do in the past, and muster up one more season of Big Ben play, I think they could make a wild card. I do think third place is probably most realistic in that division. But as of last year, we had 3 teams from that division make the playoffs. So I think it easily can be done again. Because I do believe in their defense. I do think it's so good.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. With me saying that they're going to finish in third place, I would not be shocked at all to see 3 teams, make it to the playoffs this year. So yeah, that would not be surprising for me either.
Yeah, that's kind of my view as well. And just to echo Jared's points with that, that was my big concern is Big Ben is aging. The first half of the season compared to the last few weeks of the season, he looks like a completely different quarterback. Especially, you go through a season of getting beat up behind that offensive line and constantly avoiding pressure. And let's not act like Big Ben's always been the picture perfect of health either. Him staying healthy is a big part of that team. So, yeah, I'm with you on the drafting running backs in first rounds. Obviously, you already know, don't take running backs in the first round. Don't pay running backs on their contracts going into their contracts. You can get these guys late, but that's just personally where I stand. As a talent, I love Najee Harris. I think he's a fantastic workhorse type of running back.
Yeah.
I think he can do everything on the field. I'm still a little iffy on pass protection from him, but outside of that, which every rookie running back is going to have issues in pass protection. So that's not really concerning to me. I think he's going to be a fantastic option receiving as well out of the backfield. They have plenty of weapons. I'm also a big fan, like you, of Freiermuth. I thought that was a really good selection because Eric Ebron just, for as athletic and, good as he is on the athletic side of the ball, he tends to drop a lot of passes. And so I think fortifying that spot with a more sure-handed option could help.
Look good in the preseason so far too.
Yeah. Freiermuth has really looked well. And then, elite defense, Minka Fitzpatrick, Joe Hayden, all those guys. Obviously, TJ Watt. Who else is on that offensive line, too? I mean, they've got some really big guys up there as well. What's the defense?
Cameron Hayward.
Yeah, Cameron Hayward. That's what I'm thinking of. Yes, yeah, Hayward.
They brought Melvin Ingram in as well.
One of the best.
I thought Melvin Ingram was a really underrated signing.
Yes, I mean, and honestly, I think Melvin Ingram was probably a little more talented than Bud Dupree is, as well, just pure talent wise. So that's, that can be an interesting signing as well. So I don't have any questions about the defense. Maybe the linebacking room, possibly.
Yeah, outside of Devin Bush, it's kind of questionable.
Yeah, could use something, if more depth at that position. But outside of that, I agree with Jared. I do think third place in this division is a little more likely than not, but even third place in this division, as we saw last year, will still get you into the playoffs. So I could definitely say
my biggest concern outside of the stuff we've already talked about is I brought up schedule a lot, and I mean, it can things can change when you get into the season and teams' outlooks start to change. But I mean, they're playing a first place schedule based off last year's results, and I don't think they're a first place team. So that's something that's just they're going to have a lot of tough games that they're going to be playing this year.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. This is very much almost similar to the Green Bay, the last ride for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because after this, who knows how much longer Big Ben's going to play. Some of these other guys are getting older, like Hayward. Some of these contracts are going to start coming up, and they're going to be almost in basically rebuild mode, because unless you're concerned or convinced that Mason Rudolph is the answer, which I don't think any of us are, because we've already seen that show.
I don't want to go down this road too far, man, but Dwayne Haskins has looked kind of good in preseason.
I'm not going to entertain that.
I think he deserves to be the backup. That's basically what I'm getting at. I don't think it should be Mason Rudolph.
The 0-16 Lions went 4-0 in preseason, so that's about how.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, and he's probably. I mean, I don't know what point he's getting into the game. I'm sure he's playing against like third stringers by the time he plays. But
he's probably going against practice squad.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's the future of the Steelers or anything like that, but I do think he should be the backup over Rudolph. I think we've seen enough of Rudolph in that offense. And, Haskins has at least a little bit more athletic upside, where if Big Ben did go down, maybe the Steelers offensive minds can work some magic and get something out of him. But yeah, that's the only reason I was bringing that up, is I do think that the backup quarterback job should belong to him over Rudolph personally.
Yeah. I still think Rudolph just gets the benefit of the doubt there, but
Probably.
I mean, I don't see, if it gets to that point to where they're deciding between those two guys, their season's pretty much shot.
If
so.
Big Ben goes down, their season's screwed regardless. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's most teams. If you lose your starting quarterback, I mean, you're done.
Yeah.
So trust me, if they retire 2 weeks before the season, it's not a good thing.
Oh, pain.
It's never good. So
right.
Let's move on now to this team that finished second in that division as well.
And it's episode 2. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, no. You're
pulled away there.
So we will move on to the second place team. That was the Baltimore Ravens. And with Baltimore, it's, there's some sombering news came out this morning as well, kind of similar to last night, where they have now lost J.K. Dobbins for the year with a torn ACL. That is a huge hit to that running game, but I don't think it's the end of the world because I'm such a huge believer in Gus Edwards. I think I was really hoping Gus Edwards would not re-sign with Baltimore so he could get a starting gig somewhere else, like maybe Atlanta or Miami or somewhere like that. But, as it so happens, Gus Edwards now does get his chance at a starting role. And with the way that they run the ball, especially with Lamar Jackson, they'll probably bring in another guy, although they are really big fans from what I've read all over, the last few preseason games. They're big fans of Tyson Wallace, the kid they drafted.
Tyson Williams, yeah.
Yeah, Williams, yeah. They're big fans of him, and it seems kind of like Justice Hill's kind of slipped to third on that depth chart. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out if they decide to bring in a veteran. I know they had Todd Gurley in for a visit, a few months ago, but you lost one running back to a knee injury. I don't know you would bring in a running back with no knees. So
right.
I don't know if Todd Gurley necessarily moves the needle. So we will see. But like I said, Baltimore Ravens, I love the Rashad Bateman pick. I thought that was a fantastic pick. It gives them finally a legit one receiver to pair with, your speedster at Hollywood Brown. And they brought in Sammy Watkins as well, trying to, fortify that receiving core for Lamar Jackson. Obviously, we know what Mark Andrews is, one of the best tight ends in the league. And the defense is, in pure Baltimore Ravens fashion, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Probably the best secondary outside of Denver in the NFL. And I personally have this team finishing second in division. I had Pittsburgh finishing third. I think Baltimore repeats as second in the division this year, but I could very easily see them winning as well if Lamar takes the next step as his progression as a passer and those receiving options finally pay off. I'm interested to see the offensive line now that they traded Orlando Brown. I'm interested to see, kind of some of those other pieces. But, this team was it's always been one of the most well-coached teams. They're not going to make mistakes. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to be very physical, and they're going to basically punch you in the mouth with defense and running. And that's something that I think can stay consistent for the entire season. That's something that you never lose. If you play defense and you run the football well, then you're going to be basically almost in every game. What the only question mark I do have with Lamar Jackson and this offense is if they get down early and they have to throw the ball. We have seen over the last couple of years that they have a very tough time overcoming deficits once they get down, and they're not playing with that lead like they are in most games. So I'm curious to see if that can kind of hinder them. But outside of that, I don't really have many questions about the Ravens. They've always been a perennial playoff team, and I don't think that's going to change this year. So Jared, any thoughts on the Ravens?
Yeah, they're actually my pick to come out of the division in first place. I think it does. I'm big on Cleveland. Don't get me wrong. I think these two teams are pretty much mirror in a lot of ways outside of the quarterback position, which I do think Baker is a better passer than Lamar Jackson. But I think if you look at it, like I look at it, like I think the coaching edge goes to Baltimore. The experience goes to Baltimore. The special teams goes to Baltimore. Baltimore has one of the best special teams in all of the NFL too. Like they have great kick returners, and they have already
John Harbaugh,
Yeah.
special teams coach. So.
Right, exactly. And those are things that kind of go under the radar a lot of times, but are very important, like especially towards the.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, if you remember, who was it? Was it the San Diego Chargers that were number 1 on offense and number 1 in defense?
Yes.
They were number 32 in special teams, and they didn't make the playoffs, having the number 1 offense and number 1 defense in the NFL. So, yeah, special teams are very often overlooked part of the game.
And I go back to that game last year with Cleveland, that fantasy fun fest is what I called it. It was a great game. At the end of the day, Lamar Jackson came through, and they had a lead. They blew a lead. Baker rallied. But I just think that I do think Lamar Jackson, this is a year he progresses as a passer. I don't think he's ever going to be your typical atypical quarterback. I just don't think it's going to happen. But he can burn you in so many ways. And as fast as the defenses are getting in the NFL, no one's going to catch that guy. He's too elusive.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, you've got them coming in first, and I can't really argue with any of those points. So Andrew, let's get your take here on the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, so I have them finishing second like you, Landon, but it was a tough decision to make. And one reason is because I do agree that I think this is the year that Lamar Jackson does take a step forward as a passer. I think it's pretty easy to see that this is by far the best set of pass catching options that Lamar has had to his, at his disposal at this point in his career, professional career. And, that's part of that is because I'm a really big Rashad Bateman fan. And Sammy Watkins, for all the up and downs he's had, in the league up to this point, he is a huge upgrade to that wide receiver room as well. And then Mark Andrews obviously is still established. He's still really good. So that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I do think that this is the year where he steps forward and makes a leap in that standpoint. Now, I do agree that he's not going to be, he's not going to sit in the pocket and pick you apart like some quarterbacks will do, but I do think we see improvement on that end. And the J.K. Dobbins injury is unfortunate, but I went back and pulled up a couple of notes that I had from whenever we did our sleeper picks for fantasy. I had Gus Edwards was one of mine, and I had a couple notes on him.
Yeah. So if you listen to the Amateur Experts podcast, you've already been on Gus Edwards because we've already discussed him on why you should have taken him in later episodes. So if you listen to us, you're already ahead of the curve with the Gus Edwards injury.
Right, exactly.
J.K. Dobbins injury, my bad.
Not getting into the fantasy side of it, but just the numbers to show how capable of a running back he's been. He's had 5.2 yards per carry over the last 2 years, which is 5th among running backs during that time. And he's gained yards, like some type of yards, positive yardage on 89.1% of his 414 carries, the most of any player in the NFL since 2018 whenever he entered the league. So the dude's just a good running back. And now he's going to get the opportunity to show that at a bigger level. With Dobbins out. Now, it does hurt the team not having somebody as talented. You don't lose a player as talented as J.K. Dobbins and just get better. But, Gus Edwards is very serviceable, and I think he's going to show how talented he is in this role. Now, I would expect him to get some pass catching relief from either Tyson Williams or Justice Hill. But I do think Edwards is going to really impress people this year. And then obviously on the defensive side of the ball, you love the interior with Derek Wolfe and Calais Campbell. We'll see with the edge with Justin Houston, Tyus Bowser, we'll see.
I loved the rookie they took this year in the draft.
Oh, Owe. I know it's Jason Owe, but that's not what he wants to be called. What is it?
I can't remember what his name is.
It starts with an O too, because I remember
it's very confusing.
Name was O, last name O. Yeah, so not to disrespect him because I know he doesn't want to be called Jason Owe, but yeah, I agree. I like that.
He's looked great in preseason too. Though.
Yeah,
not as good as Kwity Paye, but
but I mean, they're, the cornerback duo they have in Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters might be the best in the league. If it's top 3 minimum. So they've got that going for them. And then the safety position is strong too. So, the only question marks I really have with this team, outside of the obvious will Lamar take that leap that we're projecting, is just what they have coming off the edge, and then the linebacker room. Patrick Queen looked decent last year, but I still think he has some questions to answer. So we'll see about that. But I think this is going to be another typical strong year for Baltimore, and it wasn't an easy choice picking them to finish second, but that's where I've got them finishing.
Yeah, I agree. And just to go back to, I know we didn't want to make this a fantasy show, but with J.K. Dobbins, I found out it was pretty interesting today, or with Gus Edwards, I should say, that he actually has an 80% catch rate when targeted in the passing game. So that's not to say, a lot of people I've seen, they're knocking him because he's not going to catch a lot of balls. Well, he's never actually been used, but when he has been used in that role, he still has been effective. So I think he does possess the ability to catch some passes. Just judging off of that catch rate, it shows that he does have some very good hands if he's used in that way as well. But I do expect him to be spelled mostly in the passing game, but I think he's going to be a red zone monster. So let's get out of the fantasy aspect. Let's move on now to the third place team, the one I'm most excited about. This is the Cleveland Browns. And it's so weird for me to say this. The team I'm most excited about, maybe not even just in this division, maybe the most excited I am for any team in the NFL, because this team and this fan base have been starved of a winning culture for so long. And it is so nice to see a team that is just completely built all throughout the roster. There's almost no weakness. You could maybe say the linebacker spot's a question mark, but I think bringing in Anthony Walker, who was a really good linebacker for the Colts, I think he's going to help bring some leadership and shore up that linebacker room the same way he did for the Colts with Darius Leonard and some of these other guys. And then, obviously with the draft picks that they
hit a home run in the second round with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. That was a home run.
Yeah, and just knowing what Anthony Walker did for Darius Leonard in that room when Leonard came into the league,
and JOK he's kind of undersized compared to
he's very similar to Leonard. So I think having a guy like Walker to kind of help give him that template's just going to be better for him. But I mean, even then, that's just, maybe the pass rushers outside of, Myles Garrett have some question marks, because we all know Clowney, for as talented as he is, he just, for whatever reason, just does not produce numbers, does not produce sacks. Really good in the run game, but who knows? Maybe this is the year. He's never had a pass rusher like Myles Garrett on the other side.
Right.
Now he did play with JJ Watt, but it's and that's not to disrespect Watt, but with Watt, it's more of an interior type of rusher as opposed to playing on the edge. And I think most of the attention is going to go to Myles Garrett. But my biggest thing with this team, the biggest thing I love the most about the entire team, is the offensive line and the running game. Outside of the Colts, they probably have the best offensive line in football. And I would even say right now they have a better offensive line than the Colts do since Anthony Costanzo retired, because we don't really know how well Eric Fisher is going to come back from that injury. So right now, I think they have the best offensive line in football. They have two just absolute monsters at running back with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Both guys could be starters on probably 25 teams in the league outside of maybe a few rosters. Those guys would be, number one options. And here they are sharing a backfield. Odell comes back from the torn ACL. I think he's in for a really good season, a bounce back season as well. I know he's been really determined this offseason. You haven't seen a lot of, the bullshit social media dancing that normally comes around with Odell. He's been extremely focused. The pass catchers are deep. And I honestly think this is the year Baker Mayfield takes that leap into being an elite quarterback in the NFL. I think after this season, Baker Mayfield will be viewed as a top 8 quarterback in football. I just call it a hunch and just call it from stuff that I've seen, but I've not seen, I think one, continuity in the NFL is one of the biggest things with the coaching staff. This is the first time most Cleveland Browns, not even just Baker, that most Cleveland Browns have the same coach going in to the multiple off seasons. So now they're finally having an off season where they don't have to learn a brand new offense and a brand new defense and brand new terminology. They finally have some continuity there. And because, Stefanski brought stability to that coaching position. And I think he's a very talented coach as well. And I just think I've never seen Baker look better than he has in practice. And even in the preseason game tonight, he made an absolute dime throw for a touchdown earlier, moving to his left, and the ball's just coming out with so much velocity. His size is still a question mark, but I think with his mobility and his arm strength and his accuracy, and now that he has another year in this system, his decision making is just going to continue to get better. He's going to have a better understanding of where to go with the ball. Getting guys like Odell back, Jarvis Landry's still there. We haven't even talked to Jarvis Landry. Austin Hooper's there. The other tight end they have there as well. I can't even remember his name right now.
It was no slouch.
Yeah, who's the other tight end? Because it's going to drive me nuts.
They got Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, and David Njoku.
Yeah, David Njoku. Yeah, and I even forgot about Harrison Bryant. I mean, that's just a loaded tight end room. I mean, there is no position on this roster that, like I said, maybe linebacker, and that's projecting that the rookie doesn't hit and they have a down year at linebacker. But outside of that, there's no question marks. This is the most complete roster in football that is not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If there's one team that is not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that has the best roster in football, we can say it finally, Cleveland Browns fans, it's your team. So this is my team to win the division. This is my team, honestly. I think they compete with Kansas City this year to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm so excited for Browns fans. I'm excited for my fiance, who is now an adopted Browns fan. She's been following them for like the last 3 seasons. For whatever reason, that they just clicked with her, who knows? Judging by her taste in men, she likes shitty things. So, it's nice to. I've watched a lot of Cleveland Browns football the past 3 years. And so maybe that plays a part into why I'm so excited, because now I think they're going to have one of the best products in the NFL for me to pay attention to. I'm going to go. I'm not even going to get into the secondary because I'm going to let Drew do that, because I know that he's been waiting on the secondary talk with the former Rams guys. So we will move into that. Drew, take the Cleveland Browns.
So off the rip, I'm like, obviously, we've went through 2 going into 3 teams here, and I still haven't named a division winner, and it's not going to be Cincinnati. So this is clearly my division winner as well. I do agree. I think the Browns have the second best roster in football, and I think a lot of that is the work that they did turning a weakness into a strength with the moves that they made to shore up their secondary, both through the draft and free agency. They've already got Denzel Ward there, obviously, who it looks like every bit of what he was drafted to be, and then some. By the numbers, Troy Hill has been a top 2 slot corner in the league the last 2 years.
Outside of Kenny Moore, yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue there's anybody better.
So, and they bring him in there. Now they've got Greg Newsome, the second out of Northwestern, that they drafted in the first round, that I loved. I thought that was a home run pick that they took there. So the corner position, and then
Greedy Williams.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Greedy Williams. He's still there as well. And then at safety, John Johnson was probably the best value signing in free agency with how cheap they got him. And he's dealt with some health issues over his career, but when healthy, he is a Pro Bowl, borderline all pro safety. And then you've got, I don't know how Grant Delpit has looked coming back from injury, but if he can be his normal self, I think that this secondary is right behind Denver as the best secondary in football. I think that they would be the second best secondary in total behind Denver. And that's, considering that this was a weakness on this team last year, that's an incredible improvement through the draft and free agency. I mean, adding guys like Troy Hill, Greg Newsome, John Johnson, I mean, that's incredible. And then I loved Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was the clear second best linebacker in the draft for me this year behind Micah Parsons. And it was close. I think that he is going to be one hell of a player. And so for them to get Newsome and JOK, but with their first and second round picks and seeing that value, whenever Koramoah started sliding in the draft, they traded up to grab him. And it broke my heart because it was getting close to I think the Rams might have actually already picked. I can't remember, but he was somebody that was really hoping the Rams were going to be able to grab in the second once he started to slide. That I think that they should have made a move for. But and then, we'll see with Clowney. I don't know, but we do know that Myles Garrett is one of the best, if not the best guy coming off the edge of football. So, you touched on the only thing that you didn't, I don't want to say you didn't touch on because you talked about him having a bounce back year, but something that I want to address is I've heard a lot over the last couple of years that Baker Mayfield is better with OBJ off the field. And I just think it's a load of shit to say that, yeah, we're going to take one of the most talented receivers in the league off the field, and our team's going to be better for it. Whenever the reality is, one thing you did touch on, and one thing I think is going to play a big part in this is around the same time, like OBJ, whenever he has gotten hurt, it's been around like the middle of the year, things like that. And then Baker is magically looking better toward the end of the year. A lot of that is every year he's playing in a new system and he's learning a new system each and every year. So, he finally starts to get comfortable with the system toward the end of the year. And then he starts to magically play better, which makes sense. But it just so happens that OBJ is getting hurt around that time as well. And so he's not on the field to get to reap the benefit of Baker getting comfortable in the system he's playing in. Fast forward to this year, there is no getting used to a new system, like you pointed out. He gets to play in the same system 2 years in a row. And, same thing with Odell. He gets to as well. And I think those guys are really going to hit their stride this year with getting that advantage of not having to relearn an offense or learn a new offense, anything like that. And then, I was a big fan of Donovan Peoples-Jones whenever he was coming out of Michigan. I like what I've seen from him so far in camp and preseason. I think that he'll be a nice I don't know I don't think he's going to be a stud or anything like that, but I think if he can replace Rashard Higgins, and I think Higgins is fine, but if he can replace the role that Rashard Higgins has played over the years, I think the passing offense will be better for it. I'm completely on board. I'm on for the ride. I would not be shocked at all to see these guys in the AFC title game this year. The one question mark I have is Baker Mayfield for the most part. I hope to see him take that next step because I love watching Baker. I love his passion. I love his fire. I love everything he brings to the game. He's so much fun to watch, man. And if he can show that he can do that, I think that, he could be what gets them over the hump and gets them possibly to a Super Bowl. But that's the one thing that I want to see is Baker make that, next step. That's kind of where my nerves lie. Because, obviously you're not going to be as comfortable with Baker as you are with Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and quarterbacks like that some of these other Tom Brady, whenever we talk about some of the other top rosters in the league, they've also got quarterbacks like that on the roster, so that.
But I mean, when you talk about those other guys too, what do you always talk about with them? Continuity with the coaching staff.
Right.
Mahomes has never played for anybody other than Andy Reid. Tom Brady for 20 plus years has had, the New England system. And even then, whenever he went to Tampa, even last year, they kind of struggled at the beginning of the year until they added some of those New England elements into that system. And then what happens? Offense takes off. Continuity with the coaching staff and the offense is the most underrated part of a great quarterback and a great offense.
I agree, man. And I hope Baker, I don't want to say proves me wrong because I love Baker coming out of college. I thought he should have won Rookie of the Year with what he did for that Browns team once he came in and took over the league. I know Saquon ended up getting it. And Saquon had a great rookie year. There's no shade to him, but like I love watching Baker play, and so I hope he does it because I love it, man. I love everything they got going on in there in Cleveland, and it's kind of the opposite of what we said about the Raiders. We talked about on the last episode how great the Raiders fans are and how unfortunate it is what they're going through, and now like the Browns fans are, it's kind of the opposite. They've had to deal with that for a long time already. And now they're finally getting to see the fruits of that labor pay off. So, but yeah, so that's kind of my long spiel on the Browns, but I got them winning the division this year and making a run.
Awesome. So Jared, we will end with you with the Cleveland Browns.
Man, you guys, you summed it up. They're a great roster. I mean, from every inch of the team they're great at their depth chart's the best. I think it is the best. I even put it up. I mean, you said Tampa Bay. It might be a little bit better than Tampa Bay's overall with the namesake anyways. I know Tampa got every starter back, and that just doesn't happen. Like, that's incredible they were able to do that. And you hit it. Drew said it about OBJ. Like, Baker's not had him a full season yet. He's really not had him. He's had him, beginning of the year, he got hurt. I think if they get a full season out of Odell Beckham Jr., he's going to make that team better. It's going to having him on the field already makes their running game better, in my opinion, too. He's going to make Jarvis Landry better. And I think Jarvis Landry is extremely underrated. They're a great team, man. And like the reason why I picked Baltimore, I feel like the veteran coaching, like towards the end of the season, will definitely favor Baltimore. And that's no knock at Cleveland. They're the second best team in that league, in my opinion. And everything you guys spelled out, I can't really like debate the rosters because Cleveland has a better roster than Baltimore. I just have more faith in Baltimore pulling it out towards the end of the season. I think it's gonna be a tight race. And like I said too, I think Pittsburgh can squeeze in. They could be another wild card team as well. I mean, realistically, this is one of the best divisions in football. And Roethlisberger finds ways to get in. Baker's still young, but Cleveland's already a winner, and that fan base completely deserves the team they have. Like, they have an amazing team. If I wasn't a Colts fan, I'd probably root for these guys. Like, they got so much talent. It'd be fun to watch. Like, every week it'd be like exciting to watch. They got a shot, man. Like I said, I got them at 2, but if they won the division, it wouldn't be a shock at all. I would not be surprised.
No, I think even this could even end up being a Colts Titans scenario last year where both teams have the same record, same everything, but there's just a divisional tiebreaker with maybe the Bengals or the Steelers, not even with each other. So I mean, I think Cleveland's going to win it outright, and I think Baltimore finishes a game or two behind them, not by much, but yeah, seeing 3 teams in this division go to the playoffs is probably one of the better, I guess, easier picks for me because the AFC is so top heavy with talent.
It is.
That, that's why you always pretty much have the same teams every year. The Steelers, the Ravens, the Patriots.
Well, I kind of got drug away when you guys were talking about Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin's still there. So, like, that alone, man, like, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. And, like, he's a great head coach. Mm-hmm. They're not as talented as Baltimore or Cleveland, but they can find a way.
I actually had them making the wild card as well. So I have 3 teams coming out of this division. So now that we've touched on the 3 playoff teams, let's touch on the one that is not a playoff team. And to me, this is another fan base that has just consistently been starved of a winning culture. I know they had a semi-run there in the mid-2000s with Carson Palmer, but that was very short-lived, actually, thanks to the Steelers, who annihilated his knee. But we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals for a minute. So to me, there's not really too much to say. This team is talented at all the spots that does not matter when it comes to winning. And by that, I mean, they're really talented at wide receiver. They're got a decent running back, and, we'll see what Joe Burrow is because he's still very young. He is talented, but, coming back from the knee issue, there has been some issues with his confidence this offseason, getting back from that knee surgery. But outside of that, this roster is extremely barren. The defense is probably the worst defense in the NFL. I feel pretty confident in saying that Cincinnati's probably the worst defense in the NFL. The offensive line is god awful. One of the biggest blunders to me in this draft was taking Jamar Chase, and that's not even a knock on Chase. I like him as a player, but not addressing that offensive line because we've seen it already play out just in the limited Joe Burrow preseason snaps where, there's been talk too, in camp, that whenever they do camp with, the other teams, that Joe Burrow drops back and he's just instantly just getting pounced on. And it doesn't matter how good your wide receivers are if you have 1.5 seconds to throw the ball to them. It doesn't matter. So, this is just one of the worst rosters in football to me. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon unless, Joe Burrow just happens to become the next Peyton Manning and is able to completely change that culture. But it's one of the worst rosters, and I think they're back in line for a top 3 overall pick this next season.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to argue that, man. I don't want to call them the worst defense in football yet, only just for a couple reasons. One, I do think Jesse Bates and Von Bell is a solid safety duo, and then I do like Bates, yeah. I do like the additions they made in I don't want to blunder his name in, but Awuzie and then Mike Hilton to that cornerback room was definitely an improvement. It's still not, I wouldn't call it a strength or anything like that, but it's definitely an improvement over what they had last year. Now those are the only nice things I have to say about the defense. But I do think that might be enough to where they might not be the worst defense in football, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they were bottom 5. We'll see with bringing Riley Reeve what kind of difference that makes, and then having, Jonah Williams in year 2 at left tackle, seeing what that does. But even if those 2 guys hit, you still have nothing but question marks in the interior on the offensive line. So that's going to be brutal too. So, yeah, I mean, outside of their safety room and their wide receiver room, there's not much to like on this team, man. So it's trying to sort out first place, second place, and third place was a little tough in this division. Was not very hard to figure out who was going to finish last. So I'm not. That's my Cincinnati Bengals spill. They're last place easily. Sorry, Bengals fans, but it's going to be another year to add to the rebuild.
Yep. So Jared, we'll end on you with the Bengals.
Well, if we're going by my fantasy draft from earlier this week, the Bengals should win this division. I have Burrow and I have T. Higgins. Man, yeah, they're bad and they're not going to be good. They have a lot of young talent. They really do. It's hard to find a lot to talk about with Cincinnati. I personally believe in Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is going to be a stud. I think it's going to take a while. But you referenced Peyton Manning. I don't know if he'll be Peyton Manning, but I think he could have a great career in the NFL, like Hall of Fame career. I think they could. Like Joe Burrow has the talent. I mean, he's probably the greatest college quarterback of all time. That season he had.
He's not Tim Tebow.
Maybe not career as a whole, but like you're just talking about one individual season.
I'm talking about one season.
Right.
One season.
There's definitely an argument to be made for that one.
I mean, that season was unbelievable, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Joe Burrow. But even then, I mean, you gotta look at the offense he was surrounded by as well.
Oh, no.
He's throwing the monsters. Right. But I
don't think offense is the problem in Cincinnati. I don't think that's the problem. The problem is definitely their offensive line is atrocious. It's awful. Yeah, I would actually say it might be slightly ahead of Pittsburgh's though. I would say maybe it's a little bit better in Pittsburgh's.
Possibly.
That offensive line
with them adding Riley Reeve, maybe.
Right. But there's just not a lot of bright spots in there. I think a lot of young talent. It will be a fun team to watch. They're going to throw the ball a lot, and they're going to have a lot of learning curves ahead of them. A bunch.
Yeah, definitely a fun fantasy roster for sure with how much they're going to be passing. And I think T. Higgins is going to be a stud. I think Tyler Boyd is already a really good option. Jamar Chase, we'll see because
I still haven't lost the faith.
I don't really put a lot of stock into preseason. I don't. So
the dude hasn't played football for a year.
Yeah,
right. So, he's going to get his feet under him. Jamar Chase is going to be fine. He's going to be a stud.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not really worried about Jamar Chase like the internet seems to be, but
they drafted so poorly though.
But their draft was not good at all. Even just outside of the first overall pick, the other picks as well. Just
This is
None of them,
bad.
and losing Carl Lawson, I thought was going to be one of the biggest losses for a team, not even just the Bengals, but just a team in general. They should have done everything they could have to keep that guy. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to spend a ton of time on the Bengals just because that's just where they are. They're a rebuilding roster. They're still trying to learn the ways of winning in the NFL. And I don't think that's going to start this year. And it seems neither of you two do as well. So we will conclude that. So just to end the divisional preview part, let's go here with, from first to last. I have Cleveland Browns winning the division, Baltimore Ravens finishing in second, getting into the wild card, Pittsburgh Steelers winning the division, or not winning the division, but coming in third place and possibly getting into the wild card as well, and then the Bengals finishing last.
So I've got Cleveland winning as well. Baltimore coming in second. Those two teams are playoff locks for me. We've got our playoff primer coming up in a couple of weeks where we'll outline how we think the playoffs are going to shake out. I haven't made my mind up on the Steelers yet. Still torn on that one, so I can't guarantee they'll be in the playoff picture for me. But I do have the Steelers finishing third, and then the Bengals coming in last.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have Baltimore first, Cleveland second, Pittsburgh third. All three teams making the playoffs, obviously, and Cincinnati in fourth place.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we all stand on that. I think obviously adding that extra wild card spot is going to be the Steelers' best friend this year.
I think that's how they get in.
Yeah, I do too. So I think that's going to be really beneficial to the Steelers. So that will knock off our AFC North preview, which means we only have one more division to go before the season starts. We will get that out next week, as well as our playoff primer for all of our season-long predictions. We'll go into MVP, Rookies of the Year, playoff teams, who we think is going to win the Super Bowl, and now that Jared's on board, even more exciting stuff because we have our first week 1 fantasy and DFS primer coming out as well. So a lot of great content. We will have
it's supposed to be a fun couple of weeks. Man. Holy shit.
Yeah, I know. We've got the AFC
Hearing you say
East.
all that like that. Oh.
Yeah, man, we've got the AFC East coming out. We've got, like I said, we've got our playoff primer and our NFL season preview. And then we have the DFS and fantasy week 1 preview before the season starts. So a lot of awesome episodes coming out over the next week and a half. So we will go ahead in that there because we'll let Drew do the ending. I'm going to get too excited. We might just cut another show tonight. So
right. Yeah.
Take us out of here, Drew.
All right. Yeah. Let's go ahead and hit stop record on this one. And let's just go ahead and cut the next one while we're here. No, but seriously, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. As always, we're pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, it doesn't matter. We're there. And then of course, if you want any visuals to go along with the listening pleasures, you can head over to YouTube. If you do venture over to YouTube, make sure to like this video while you're there. And then, if you're a Bengals fan, drop in the comments and tell us why we shouldn't have you finish in last, if you could possibly drum up an argument for that, or just let us know how you feel so we can sympathize with you. Yeah, right. But I know this division has a lot of passionate fan bases, so if you guys see this, you disagree with anything we say, drop in the YouTube comments and let us know, and we'll be happy to type it out with you in the YouTube comments as well. But while you're there, subscribe on the channel. And then click on the little bell that pops up so that you can be notified whenever we do throw up a new podcast. It's usually just about 1 a week. Now that the NFL season's ramping up, that might go up to 2 a week. But so I still 2 notifications over a week. We're not going to be blowing up your phone. So make sure that you stay up to date on what's coming. But yeah, first and foremost, just thank you. And stick with us as we approach the NFL season.
Yes, sir. And once again, a big shout out and welcome to my boy Jared Holly down there.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and he will be a permanent.
I will be more prepared next time. You guys are like, man, you guys had these divisions down. I was kind of like, oh man, I was gonna go in this. I was gonna drop this, and I was like,
well, we're like 7 divisions deep, man.
Right.
So we
I was gonna say,
got a few of these episodes under our belt.
Yeah, and the better news is that you are now a permanent co-host. So you're going to have all the time in the world to talk with us from here on out. So I'm really excited for your DFS knowledge as well. So not only will we help you win your fantasy league, not only will we help you be smarter about football, Jared's going to help you win some money this season as well. So even more of a reason to listen.
If you guys want, when the time comes, I could show how to build a roster too, and kind of what to look for and different things on that. That's definitely my passion, is doing that. So, I love to, and I like talking on to all the communities with different players. It's a huge community, and there's money to win and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so if that's something you guys are interested in, I know I'm interested in it. So
Yeah, sign me up.
yeah, so exactly. So I mean, the two co-hosts are into it, so we'll probably do it no matter what you guys say. But, if you are interested in it, let us know down in the comments. We're going to end the video and podcast here. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will catch you next week with the AFC North or AFC East preview.